Welcome to the Powerful Marketing Tips Podcast, created for overwhelmed business owners who want to build, run, and organize their marketing for good. And here's a brief overview of our guest. You're about to meet an industry expert with more than 30 years of experience. Nick Cramp is a business owner, longtime coach, the author of Better Before Bigger, and also a passionate believer in the idea that lifelong learning is the key to happiness. He's worked with a range of companies across all sectors, but now specializes in guiding adolescent stage companies to maturity by challenging leaders to consider becoming better before bigger. Listen to the inspiring interview to find out why leaders need to evolve before they can transform their companies, and what are the actionable steps to getting there. Enjoy.
Hi. So let's face it, growing and scaling one business can be very hard. It takes, considerable effort wearing those different hats, dealing with sales, marketing, understanding taxes, having to interact with customers, suppliers on a daily basis, and so much more. And I know from my own experience, it takes a lot. And too often we burn out before actually getting it right? So how to grow the business and how to get bigger? Those are the questions we're going to discuss today. And I am so honored to have this interview today with Nick Cramp, who has been working with a range of companies across all sectors, but now specializing in guiding adolescent stage companies to maturity. Welcome, Nick, to our podcast.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to our conversation.
So, could you briefly walk us through your own journey, please, for those who haven't heard about you earlier?
So my only journey in business started when I was 23, 24, and I was fortunate enough to be able to buy a business. So I bought a health club, and realised very soon that I didn't know anything about business. I knew a bit about health. I'd done a sports degree, but I knew very little about business. And I spent the next, 10, 12 years building the business in various ways. And we were successful on a number of criteria, but we didn't really have a plan for the business beyond running it. And therefore we became trapped by the business we created. So we were successful, but we only ever got to adolescence. I then repeated this trick with a second business. So I built another business next door, a preschool and nursery, and we got the same situation there. And it got me curious, so I went off to an MBA and understood a lot more about business. And I realised that there was a lot more to building a business rather than just working on the operational. And I realised that I was burying myself on the operational side of the business and didn't really have a bigger vision and plan. And in the meantime, the 2008 recession came, so we had to close one business, we sold another business, and that's when I started business coaching. And that's when my real education started into understanding business life cycles, understanding what it takes to actually achieve sustainable success in a repeatable way, which allows the business owner to feel in control and grow the business. I think the difficulty is that complexity around growth and control. And it generally seems you can have one, but you can't have both simultaneously. And my journey over the last few years has been working primarily with adolescent stage companies and trying to understand what's the difference between the ones that scale successfully to maturity and the ones that never get past that stage. What's different in the way the business is set up? What's different about the mindset of the leader? What's different about the operational side of the business? So I've really got fascinated about what that looks like, and I then documented that into a program, into a book, which is about this concept of better before bigger. So that's me.
Wow. That's amazing. We'd love to hear about those whys. So tell us, why better before bigger?
I think that when we start in business, we look at business growth as being like climbing a mountain. And, when we're a kid, we see mountains as being triangles, and we just go up one side and we go straight down the other side. When in reality, a mountain is climbing plateaus, slight downhills, more climbing. It's actually much more nuanced. And I think that's what we forget when we run a business, that at various times we need to be on a plateau, and that means that we have the time to catch ourselves up, we have the time to refocus, re-energize, re-strategize, and there's certain times in a business life cycle where we just need to ease the foot back slightly off the accelerator and let the business catch us up. Growth is great, but continual growth at a high level, double-digit level, is really hard to maintain for all of those involved. And it might look great in terms of the balance sheet or the profit and loss, but what's the impact on our employees? What's the impact on our suppliers and partners? So I think that there's this more nuanced journey that business needs to take, which is periods of growth followed by plateau periods where they improve the business before they grow again. And that's what I've tried to capture in the better before bigger analogy, is that it's really a strategic question which I ask of owners. Right now, should you be focusing on better or should you be focusing on bigger? Because it's really difficult from your team's point of view to do both. If we're talking about improving the quality of our offering, if we're talking about training our team, if we're talking about introducing new products and services, those are all challenging projects on their own. But if then you're also expecting your team to deliver 10% growth this month as well, that's a tough ask. And I think particularly right now, given the 20 months that we've all been through, there's a real question out there about what the next year looks like for companies and what the growth targets should be. And I think it's a really interesting question to pose to leaders around what do they actually need going forward, and what's the appropriate strategy which is going to give them the long-term success. So do they need to just pull back a little bit to allow their people and the systems and the process to catch up?
I love the term that being the plateau, I use sometimes the phrase hurry slowly, you should stand still for a second, because it is hard to maintain things sometimes, especially when you are solopreneur or, small business owner, right? You have so much going on at the same time, and it might be very overwhelming. I totally get that. So I read your book. I love it.
Thank you.
You know that already. But tell me about, I love the term flucture, because I've never heard this before. Could you please explain this to us here?
Flucture is very simply that combination of flexibility and structure. I think when businesses are starting up, we have lots of flexibility. We try and be very agile. We try to offer a range of projects to different markets. And there's a lot of flexibility involved and a little bit of structure. And I think as we mature, the trick is to add more structure. So as the business gets bigger, the structure needs to be there to underpin the growth. And if you try and grow without the right structure in place, the growth won't be sustained or it won't be maintained, because you haven't got the processes and the systems to do that. So in adolescence is the time to add the structure. By this point, you know what good looks like in each area of your business. But very few people have taken the time to actually document and process that in a way that someone like McDonald's do. If you buy a franchise, you get a really detailed operational manual which tells you exactly how to run the business, because they've worked out the optimal way to do all the aspects of the business. And it's that principle of optimization. There's different ways we can do this, but what's the way which works best for us? What's our brand way of doing it? You know, how's it done in our particular company?
But how should I know, you know, where is this right balance between the flexibility and the structure?
The balance is, it's a really good question. The balance is hard to realise when you're in the business. But if you pull back from the business and you detach slightly and you're looking at the business and say, okay, with yourself, if you took 3 months away from the business because you got the opportunity to travel around the world, would the business be able to operate without you? Is there a process?
That's a good question.
Because if it can't, the probability is there's not enough structure in play. So we should be designing a business so that we as the founder are redundant in terms of we can go and do other things and the business isn't depending on us. Now, in order to do that, we need to lay down how we would like things to be done so that other people can do that in our absence.
You know, when you start a business, your goal really is, you know, that the business can really, you know, be there without you, right? You shouldn't be always there. That's the goal. But what happens, you know, actually, is that you are putting even more of your time into this company, right? So, and you will be more overwhelmed, and you feel like there's no way out of this situation. What would be your, I don't know, thoughts or first steps here that these overwhelmed business owners should do in this situation?
The first thing they should do is not feel bad about where they've got to, because where they've got to is down to the success they've had. A lot of businesses don't get to maturity, so a lot of business fail in the first 2 to 3 years. So the first thing they need to do is actually pat themselves on the back that they've got to this stage. They then need to accept that there needs to be a different style of leadership for the next stage of the journey. So when we're growing our businesses, most of us lead from the front. We're driving the business, we're the face of the business, we're the voice of the business, you know, we are the brand a lot of the times, which is totally appropriate and sometimes necessary when we're building it. But the problem with that is it creates a trap, because people want to deal with you and people expect you to be there. So the trick or the strategy is to delegate and bring other people in alongside you, so that if you're not front of house all of the time, the business can still operate. So it's designing the business for that next stage and bringing people in around you that have got different skill sets but can duplicate some of the work you're doing and take that work off you. So it's making yourself replaceable, which is a really hard concept. But the sooner you can do that, the easier it is to transform the business.
I get that, and it reminds me this book by John Maxwell, right? The 5 levels of leadership. And I remember that the 5th level was about, I think it was the 5th one, was about how one leader should spend 80% of his or her time to delegating, you know, and leading the team. And that truly is the next level for me.
And it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it doesn't feel naturally like leadership. It's not what it doesn't. It's not what we think leadership looks and feels like. But it's having the confidence in the people, the processes, and the things you put in place to step back and let others take a role.
Because that's the ultimate goal, really, for every business owner. We know that, but still it's so hard. So, but how should one, you know, leader really evolve before they can, like, transform the company? What are the steps here to, because I can decide that, okay, from tomorrow, 80% of my time will go to delegating, but I don't think it really happens overnight.
No, it doesn't happen overnight. I think the first thing is a mindset shift that is where you want to go. So you've got to make a commitment to yourself that you're going to make this change. So it's like starting a fitness program. The first commitment is to yourself that you actually really want to make the change that you're talking about. And then it's making that commitment public in whatever that looks like. So telling your core team, this is the ambition. By the end of the year, I need to be replaceable. And that is the goal of 2022, or whatever it is. But once we've made a commitment public, we're much more likely to stick to it. So if I tell you that I'm going to run a marathon in 3 months' time, and you commit back that you're going to join me on the starting line, we've then got a greater probability of it happening than if it was just a conversation we'd had with ourselves in our head.
I know.
So getting the commitment and then making the public commitment is the first step. Because once you've done that, you will find other people will step up. You'll find people out within the organisation go, great, that gives me a chance to develop and grow. And you'll suddenly find all this extra energy from other people because you've identified where they can actually develop. Because we don't realise that as a leader sometimes we become the bottleneck. And that's a difficult thing, again, to comprehend. But sometimes we are limiting the people below us ambition and development if we stay in position too long.
So pretty much we will give others opportunity to show what are their strengths.
Yeah, we need to trust our judgment. We've selected these people for a reason. We obviously feel they've got the values, they've got the skills and attributes to contribute at the next level. And if we haven't got that around us, then we need to recruit that. If we look around our team and feel that we haven't yet got the quality of people under us and next to us, then we have two options. We've either got to spend time developing the team, or we've got to recruit people with that skill set. And that's the next phase, is looking at the team, looking at the operation and saying, okay, if we were twice the size, where would be the challenge here? Where do we need to strengthen this team in order to play at the next level? You know, is it our sales and marketing function? Is it our finance function? Is it our operations function? You know, again, that objective detachment, standing back and saying, okay, well, where are we strong at the moment and where are we weak, is really important. So the analogy which I use is it's like a sports team in the off season. The manager will review the performance this year, and they'll look at the squad and they'll decide where they need to improve. Do they need to develop the fitness? Do they need to develop the skills? Do they need to change the tactics? Do they need to recruit new players? But once a year, they objectively step back and look at what they've achieved and what they've got, and make conscious decisions about recruitment, about development before they start the next season. And what I'm encouraging is business leaders to do the same.
I love it. And that's the right time right now. As we speak, it's almost December, right? It's at the end of November, and that's exactly the time when it should be done, right?
Yeah, now's a really good time. I mean, I think there's some natural times during the year, but this is one of them where for a lot of business it does kind of slow down a little bit in December. And we want to enter 2022 with a really strong plan.
That's good. So we will start with a mindset shift.
Yeah.
And we will talk to our team, right? And we will be the trainers there. But what about next steps?
So next steps is to refocus and to rethink. So rethinking means looking at what you've currently got. Is it future fit? So this could be your offering. Is your offering strong enough going forward? Have you got a relevant enough offering? Looking at your stakeholders, so your suppliers, your partners, your customers, your employees. Have you got the right ones on board? Do you need spend more time getting more of the right type of customer? which ones maybe do you need to let go of? You know, it's a really difficult thing to do, but sometimes we've got to let go of employees, or we've got to let go of customers that aren't really the right ones, because we're spending time and effort on those and we're not getting the return we could be getting. So rethink about the offering, rethink about stakeholders, and recommit to your differentiators. You know, what has made you great so far? Is it still going to be the same thing going forward? Has the market caught up with you? Have your competitors actually overtaken you? You know, being really honest about what you've currently got and whether it's good enough, and giving yourself the time to let go of certain things that you're currently doing. You know, we get wedded to the services and products we've always offered. They're like part of the family, and it's difficult to let go of them. But we should be once a year, if not more often, you know, asking whether they're still relevant, asking whether we still want to be doing that. Are they generating enough profit? So really kind of auditing.
That's very strong, because if you let something go, you actually you will get the more time. Maybe you will get, you know, new focus. You will get space for new things. Actually,
it's the space.
As you close one door, the other doors will open, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing that we ought to be doing continually, is assessing that. But once a year at least would be a great time to do it. So that's the rethink phase, and then the third phase is to refocus.
Refocus.
And I talk in the book about 6 core components which I feel leaders need to focus on in order to make this transformation from adolescence to maturity. These are 6 areas which mature businesses do very well, which adolescent businesses tend to do more erratically.
Okay, let's go over them.
So the first one is having inspirational leaders. So rather than a single leader, leadership as a function and as a skill set across the organisation. So developing people that inspire others to follow. If we take the analogy that we're going on a journey, you know, we need people that want to come on board the journey with us, but to do that you've got to be led by someone inspirational. So what is the vision? What's the mission? How are you going to inspire others to actually join the journey? The second one is strategic clarity. So getting really clear how you're going to compete going forward. How are you going to beat your competition? Is it on differentiation? Is it on price? Is it on service? But getting really clear about what you want to get known for, what you want to stay famous for. You know, we've all been to restaurants that have this ridiculously big menu and suggest they've got specialities in 17 different cuisines. And we know that in essence they've got a lot of preheated food in the fridge that they're just going to heat up if we order something. And that's not strategic clarity, that's trying to cover too many bases.
But I think that's the hardest one. I'm
Really?
sorry, but it really, because I see too much those companies who want to do anything, you know, they're offering all sort of things.
Yeah.
I can do this, and you know, the list like never ends.
Yeah.
You can ask, they even tell that I can do everything.
Yeah.
But by saying that out, actually offering everything, it means that you're actually offering nothing for me, because I don't get it. It's not clear for me.
No, you're a generalist there, and we don't tend to buy generalists. We want to buy specialists, and we want to buy people that really know their particular subject matter. So I think the confidence to become a specialist company, either by the type of client you're working with, or the market you work in, or the position within the market, it doesn't matter, but the idea of clarifying the strategy and clarifying what you're going to offer to who, I think is that stage from adolescence to maturity is one of the key things. So that's number 2.
I know.
Number
three?
Number 3 is reciprocal relationships with stakeholders. So what we're trying to get to the stage is where we have two-way relationships. And this idea of a win-win scenario. So if we're going to achieve our vision and our goals, what's in it for other people? What's the reward for our employees if we achieve these? How do we work with our partners? And trying to think about each of the relationships we have with these different stakeholder groups and just have a real clear two-way understanding about what success looks like. So this is all about alignment. It's aligning people around the mission, your vision, and making sure you've got the right stakeholders with you.
Very good. What success looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
So number 4 is numerical extrapolation. When we run a business, we are generally got an overload of data. You know this from a marketing point of view, that there is so many metrics available, and leadership can become very challenging because there's so much data.
Too much.
We're overloaded with it and it's not contextualized. We don't get, generally as leaders, good reports. We don't get reports that are informative. We just get reports that tell us everything they think we might need to know. So the key in this next stage is understanding what your critical metrics are and focusing on those across the business. So I recommend no more than 5 key metrics in each area of the business.
5. Okay, 5 KPIs.
And try and get a balance between the idea of lead and lag metrics. So lead metrics being predictors, lag metrics being an output. Sometimes we fall in the trap of just focusing on the lag metrics. So a lag metric would be amount of sales we achieved this week, the profit we generate at the end of each month.
Numbers.
Yeah, but the problem with those is that by the time we receive the information, it's too late to do anything about it. So what we
the bottom line numbers are the result.
The result, yeah. But what we want to know is the predictors on the way in. So how many websites visit did my site have this morning is a predictor of sales during the month. So getting really clear on the key metrics and not having too many metrics is the key outcome from numerical extrapolation.
That's very good, because you shouldn't measure for the sake of measuring things. Yeah, I say it all the time to my clients as well, because there are so many things you could measure, but it takes all of the time and the energy, but there's no use. I love the 5 KPIs.
Yeah.
We'll remember that.
Good. And you'll like number 5 as well. Number 5 is reputational maximization. This is the idea that for a lot of adolescent businesses, bizarrely, they might actually have enough customers already. But what they're not doing is maximizing those relationships. Because they've been...
And how should we do that?
It's actually quite...
What do you mean by that?
It's quite simple. We need to make sure that all our existing customers know the full range of services and products we offer. And that we're actually constantly marketing internally, and we're not just spending all our budget and all our time trying to find new customers. We all know that the strongest new lead is a referral from an existing customer.
That's true. And it's 7 times, I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's 7 times, but it is 7 times, more costly for you to bring new leads in, right?
But how many companies that you come across have got a referral process?
Not too many, I'm afraid.
So there's a real misalignment there between something which is highly valuable, but we haven't got a way of capturing or initiating it. So the idea of generating retentions, generating referrals, and general recommendations from the existing customers, and really maximising that existing relationship. A lot of the times now we buy based on a referral from somebody else.
Sure, that's the strongest.
Yeah, but we've got to kind of energise our workforce to make, our customers to make those referrals. We've got to incentivise sometimes to do that. So the reputational maximisation is making sure we're not just chasing new customers for the sake of it, but we're actually spending enough time focusing on existing relationships. Simply sometimes it's picking up the phone and having a conversation with the existing customer. It's not trying to sell them anything. It's just being curious about how they are. And the more we can do that during adolescence, we then create really good customer lifetime value. So that's one of the key metrics for me a lot of the time in business is the customer lifetime value. You know,
That's true.
how long is someone going to stay with us and how much on average are they going to spend? It's a really important metric to understand because it will demonstrate how much time you should be investing in that relationship.
Okay. So I have 5 already written down here.
And number 6
Those are very strong.
is operational optimization. So that goes back to what we're talking about with Flucture, is making sure we've discovered the optimal way to do stuff, and then we put it into a process, and then we train people against that process. So rather than people trying to discover their own way of doing things, because that leads to inefficiency, it leads to inconsistent customer experience, at this stage in the business life cycle, we should be optimizing. And we should be creating that operational manual, which is the way we do things here. And if we can focus on those 6 areas during the plateau period, it means that we're establishing really strong foundations across the business as you leave that plateau and start to climb again. You've got rid of the stuff you don't need. You've jettisoned customers that don't serve you. You've upgraded or trained team members that weren't fit for purpose. You've improved your processes. So it means that when you go on that next stage of the journey, you've got a leaner, tighter organisation. So the chance of success have been increased dramatically because of the work you've done during the plateau period.
So in order to really move on, you should, just take some time to stay still on that plateau, go through those 6 steps you just mentioned.
Yeah, and it's not actually staying still as such, but it might be just growing at a slower rate and like an organic growth rate. So you're gradually climbing, but it's not that, 15%
aggressive.
Yeah, it's much more natural pace which you can cope with, so that your team have got the time to do these other pieces of work.
Maybe, once per year, it's even good to take this, I don't know, a week for that or 2, just to, for a second, go through with the whole team all of those steps, right? How can we do this all together?
My favourite days of the year are my workshop facilitation days, where I take teams through these exercises, and we just spend time working through these questions. And it's really, really valuable because it creates so much focus, so much clarity, so much confidence around what they should be doing and what they don't need to do anymore. And it pays dividends in so many different ways.
I see that I love this idea, and I really do plan to do, this workshop with my own team.
Great.
Because the book was really inspiring, truly. So what would you say to wrap it up here today for this overwhelmed business owner, who is always like a hamster in a wheel, putting out fires there every day, but I know that they want to, grow bigger, of course. Yeah. But what would you say to them?
I would say they owe it to themselves to take the time to go better before bigger. I think that they're the one ultimately paying the price of their current strategy. They're the one that's feeling overwhelmed. They're the one that's feeling slightly trapped, slightly resentful maybe that they haven't got more time. So my advice would be that you owe this to yourself, and as the leader you get a say in this. You've got the permission, you've got the opportunity to put a different strategy in place. If the current strategy is not working for you, change it. Be brave, be courageous, and do something different rather than just plow on expecting something magically to change.
That's very strong. You own it to yourself and be brave. I love that.
Yeah.
Those. So thank you. And it really all starts with the mindset, as you said. But please tell us where you want people to go if they want to now, connect you and maybe learn more about what you do.
Of course. The easiest place to go is my website, which is www.nickcramp.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So either of those places, you'll find more about my program. You'll find some video content and some PDF books and things like that. So you can learn more about the philosophy. And also you can buy the book if you want to.
Yeah, you should buy it because it's very good.
Thank you.
I can assure that.
Thank you very much.
Well, and now before we go, Nick, please share and comment, on the beforehand shared song and the quote that always inspires you.
So the song I'm slightly embarrassed about, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So the song comes...
I love this song.
The song comes from Frozen, and it's the one which goes, "Let it go." And
love it.
I think it's that concept that sometimes we get so frustrated by stuff and we just need to let it go. It's not serving us to hold on to it. Lots of favourite quotes, but I think the favourite one for me at the moment is "This time will pass."
This time will pass.
And it works in both ways. It works if you're going through a negative phase, that things will change. But it also reminds us there's a finite amount of time. So we need to get on with stuff. If we want to create a business that works for us, we need to get motoring.
Wow, that's beautiful, and that's very strong.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nick, for all the work you have done, and thank you for sharing your thoughts here with our listeners here today. Really, you just gave so good insight, and pretty much you gave this overview of the whole book already.
Good.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank
you for your time.
Likewise. Keep on great work with, helping companies get better before bigger.
Thank you very much.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Powerful Marketing Tips Podcast. Make sure to link up with us at our free monthly international mastermind event. Just go to powerful-marketers.com/mastermind for registration. And one thing that would really help us and other new potential listeners is if you would rate this show and leave a comment wherever you tune in to listen. Until next time, take care.